And good afternoon. It's McCollum on Business. I'm Stephen McCollum, and for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to get you updated here what's happening in the business world, governments that affect business, stock markets, etc. We're here Monday through Friday, of course, live at 11 o'clock here at Robad TV, on demand after that. Yes, let's get it started with that Market Watch. Markets basically a little unchanged. Let's just put it that way. Yes, the Dow Jones is down 95 points right now to 47,888, but that's nominal for the Dow Jones, right, that we're looking at it. S&P 500 is basically even, 0.8 up right now, 68.55. The Nasdaq's up 29 to 23,483. The small cap index, the one big mover, 26 points for that, is a big number. 1% movement there for the Russell 2K, 25.38 there for the Russell 2K. And then you got Bitcoin still in that 90, low 90,000 range. It's down 1,100 points here today. It's trading at 92,293, but staying there in that 92,000 range. Of course, trading at 93,000 lately as well. Last couple of days, coming up from that low 80,000 that it was trading at here over the last week and a half or so there for a Bitcoin as well. What's happening with the markets? Why is it pretty much even right now? Well, there's very few things that'll move the market right now. Next week, you have the Fed decision that everybody's waiting on. Cut prices, cut the interest rate, keep it the same. And there's not a lot of movement, right? There's no other reports. We got that the private payrolls report yesterday. But other than that, just regular stock doings happening here today, which is why you're not seeing those big movements. In terms of stocks we're paying attention to, Meta Platforms is one we're going to look at first here. Meta, right? Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. Well, they came out today and they're up 3.91% because managers are weighing cuts as deep as 30%. This is the employee cuts we're talking about here. In Meta's Metaverse Group is what they call it, coming up here in 2026. Bloomberg reported this earlier today. Meta's up 3.77% with a up to 30% employee cut here coming up here in 2026 at some point. It might be, we don't know the statistics of it, but an up to 30% over the year of 2026. For an investor perspective, obviously not good news for employees, but for an investor perspective, obviously, less expenses they'll have and will open up and lead to increased profits. In theory, that's why investors like the sound of that. 3.81% up here for Meta. Next, let's look at Kroger. Here locally, Kroger is fries, if you were unaware of that, down 4.95% here today as well. Kroger is based out of Ohio. I believe it's Cincinnati, if I remember correctly. But, of course, this affects us here with fries as well, but down today. They were down over about 7% earlier today as well. Well, their third quarter revenue lagged the estimates that was expected of them out there. So, identical sales, they do take the volatile fuel numbers out of this. So, identical sales minus that fuel number rose 2.6%. In their fourth quarter their third quarter that they just announced as well. But the estimate amount was 2.9% expectation at that point. The gross margin came in less as well, which doesn't sound like a lot, 22.8%. What I mean by that is it doesn't sound like a big enough drop here to freak out about. The estimate was 23%. So they are less gross revenue. Gross margin coming in for fries as well. And investors don't like to hear that. 4.95% down here today. Kroger, of course, here locally, fries as well. Let's look at another retailer out there, Dollar General, right? It's had some ups and downs lately. We're seeing more people using them as the economy is kind of soured and uncertainty in the markets and everything. And you can see now 11.84% up for Dollar General today. They actually lifted their full year guidance as well. Dollar General anticipates earnings between $5.60 and $5.80 per share. Well, that's up from their previous guidance was only $5.32 to $5.72 per share. And the estimate was $5.53 per share. So just them lifting it took them above the estimated number just by itself there as well. Their third quarter expectations did top expectation levels there for Dollar General. So we're seeing some retailers having some success here, and we're headed into this holiday quarter, right? And when you see them lifting and raising their earnings and estimates and guidance here coming up for this quarter with the holiday shopping, it's obviously means they're getting strong numbers here after that Thanksgiving holiday. When we come back later on and look at the market, watch for another time here today. We're going to look at Hormel Foods, the spam makers, what they're known for. A company called Snowflake, cloud-based data company, which is interesting. We focused on a data company yesterday in this, and they were weighed down as well. So we'll see what Snowflake is doing today. And then PVH Corp, that's Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein brands, their parent company. We'll take a look at what they're looking at here as well with this holiday season upon us as well. It's interesting to see who's struggling and who's not here with this economy that we are dealing with. But first, let's get to some of these national stories out there as well. And if you saw it yesterday, President Trump and had some committee members, cabinet members in there. He had the big three. He had GM, he had Ford, and he had Stellantis's presidents here of the United States, at least CEOs in this meeting as well. But President Trump said his administration would reset fuel efficiency standards for passenger cars. A lot of increased prices are due to the parts you have to put in and parts you have to take out for these cars, right? And cars have gotten expensive, as we've told you here at McCollum on Business here, as of just a couple of weeks ago as well. So the administration thinks this is one way to get those numbers down as well, because the Trump administration is still continuing to battle that inflation. And, it's all over the news here on the affordability crisis that we have here in America. So the rules under the Biden administration, they sought to lower certain carbon emissions, put tremendous upward pressure on car prices, according to Trump and his administration yesterday in that meeting they had. So we told you this a couple weeks ago. The average new vehicle price in October, well, it's an all-time high. It went above $50,000 for the first time ever, which means those $20,000 cars, they just don't exist anymore out there. But Kelly Blue Book gave us that over 50,000 number. But KBB also said that despite those higher prices, retail sales continue to maintain a healthy pace. Car sales aren't slowing down because of this pricing, but it's also putting financial pressure on homeowners who need cars, right, out there as well. So price-conscious buyers, you can't get a new car for 20 grand anymore, right? Well, everybody's moving over to that, used vehicle market, which is staying elevated because of the demand in that used car market. The Department of Transportation says the proposal that is coming from the Trump administration will save the American people $109 billion. Well, what does that mean for me, right? Well, it's about $1,000 on the average cost of a new vehicle when they make these changes out there. But we don't know how fast the prices could fall when these changes happen and things to that effect. I'll also argue with people, they now know that people will buy expensive cars and kind of go through this stuff. Are they going to be in a hurry to lower these prices as well is kind of the question, right? These updated standards from the Trump administration must go through a formal rulemaking process before being finalized, and that'll happen sometime most likely coming up in 2026 there. So new cars, at least in the market of, for Ford, Stellantis, GM, for instance, looking at ways to help them lower the cost of production cars. Of course, making it, in theory, cheaper for us as consumers out there as well. And we're finally getting some real numbers on what the shutdown cost to some of these companies out there. And remember the government shutdown? It was the longest on record. We know Delta Airlines, for instance, it cost them an estimated $200 million. What was that, a 47-day shutdown? Their CEO came out. His name's Ed Bastian. He came out yesterday in the first disclosure by the U.S. airline regarding the shutdown's financial impact on that industry. So we'll have to see what the other airlines say when they report their stuff as well. The CEO there told investors that refunds grew significantly, and then bookings slowed amid the uncertainty in air travel caused by that 43-day shutdown. So Delta's loss was about 25 cents per share when all said and done. He blamed a lot of it on the Treasury Secretary in this meeting as well, and this reporting. He said the Treasury Secretary, by coming out and cutting back flights, and he basically, well, he didn't basically, he said the Treasury Secretary signaled to the American public that the air traffic controller situation meant unsafe airlines. And he's flat out blaming that for people not booking their flights for the holidays and things to that effect. I mean, if it's not safe, it's not safe, right? But obviously, despite the disruption to air travel, the CEO said that he believes the shutdown impacts are in the rear view for Delta specifically. He said Delta had a busy Thanksgiving week and the bookings through the end of the year, especially, the next couple of holidays coming up, Christmas and New Year's Day. He said their bookings were really strong over that time frame as well, moving forward. So we're seeing some real numbers. We'll have to see what the other airlines say and their impact there of that long government shutdown. It'll be interesting to see how it compares to Delta out there, as Delta's the first one to come out with those raw numbers. And it's the time of year where nobody wants to move this time of year. And we're seeing evictions, especially here in Arizona, for apartments through the roof right now. They are happening in exponential levels right now as people dealing with that here going into the holidays. And now we're finding out that, and we've seen it coming for a while, and it's been happening. I have some rental properties, and we're seeing rents fall here as people move out. Rents are falling even on renewals for people as well. We have some actual numbers to back this up. The national median rent for apartments, well, it fell 1% in November from October. So basically, it falls to $1,367 for the national median rent number. This is according to a company called Apartment List out there. It was the fourth consecutive month over month decline for the rentals on apartments. Apartment rents are down 1.1% from November 2024, and they've fallen 5.2% from that 2022 peak where rents, were through the roof and landlords got greedy, folks. Just saying. After hitting that record high on the index and this index goes back to 2017, but it did hit a record high in October. The national multifamily vacancy rate does remain at 7.2% in November as well. A lot of this has to do with the construction in this industry, which is slowing down now. Especially you live here in Phoenix, you drive around, you see apartments being built left and right? There was a historic surge in multifamily construction over the past few years. They're pulling back on that now going into next year. They're not building as many new apartments. But a good supply of new units are still coming online. Obviously, now when there's weaker demand out there, which is forcing rents to go down. The fall historically sees the biggest slowdown in multifamily rents, but this year it's even bigger. CoStar reported the biggest monthly drops in median rent it had seen in 15 years of tracking rents. The primary reason is that more young people are actually struggling to form new households. And people just aren't moving right now because of the rent situation and finding a place and the demands to rent a place. You have to have 4 times the rent in order to qualify for a place. And if a place is too expensive, $2,500, how are you making, as a young person, that much money? It's an amazing thing it's going through, and the rents are coming down, and it goes to, that's apartment rents. It's going to move, what it does is it moves from apartment rents, then it moves into house, single family rents and condo rents, et cetera, to that effect. And it just pushes the rents down for everybody out there as well as they move forward from that perspective. And you might have seen this earlier. I'm just going to tell you, Venmo was down all last night and earlier today as well. Well, Venmo did announce earlier today that the issue impacting their service, well, they said it's been fixed and the service was back up and running. Users reported trouble sending and receiving money for hours starting last night. Venmo had said Wednesday night on X that it was working on a fix. They didn't say anything about it other than it's back up and running. So no additional details at this moment on what caused the problem or how it was fixed. Were they hacked, folks, is the question you should have right here for Venmo. Or was it just somebody put a decimal point in the wrong place and pushed an update out? I do think Venmo needs to answer to that, and we'll have to pay attention. But Venmo is back up and running as of this moment. I saw that story 10 minutes before showtime. So it was right there for you. And then, interesting enough here, right? We talk a lot about how the auto industries are affected by tariffs and, a lot of retailers are affected by tariffs. There's one area that kind of is nobody's talking about out there. And I've seen a few stories. We're going to talk about U.S. sawmills, folks. Yes, several of them are struggling to stay open because industry leaders said years of trade uncertainty. So, not just this year's trade uncertainty is an issue, but the export markets are going away for them, and tightened margins for these sawmills have been an issue for a bunch of years. There is a place out there that overlooks the U.S. sawmills and everything, the Hardwood Federation. They estimate at least one sawmill is going out of business every week. That's a lot of sawmills. Additionally, the National Hardwood Lumber Association, that's the NHLA, they've reported that more than 4% of U.S. sawmills have been lost due to closures and consolidations. So, the Hardwood Federation reported American lumber was the second most exported U.S. product to China. Now, obviously, what happened? China retaliated to the U.S.'s moves, and the American lumber exporters lost roughly half their market share to competitors in places like Russia, Thailand, and Malaysia as well. The NHLA said retaliatory tariffs from other countries remain volatile, creating a ripple effect that influences global hardwood flows by these production hubs, right? Altering the supply chain dynamics across Asia, Europe, and the Americas. The interesting thing as I read about this was people just shifted to other countries. Vietnam flat out told this U.S. Sawmills, well, we're not buying from you until the U.S. starts buying from us again, and cut them out of that whole market, and they moved to other countries. Many sawmills are facing another challenge, though. It's not just tariffs and expenses and not making enough money to cover the expenses out there. Well, consumers are turning to cheaper composite synthetic wood look-alike products. And why are we switching to those? Like my side gate has that, synthetic wood out there. It looks like real wood. Well, it doesn't rot as quickly. It doesn't have to be touched up and painted at all, actually, until the life of it's over. But they're also being marketed as luxury alternatives to wood at that point. So that's actually really affecting them as well. And they called it a perfect storm. And one of the articles I read about this as I was searching for more info, perfect storm is what they said. Just expenses doubling. Obviously, that's what we're dealing with right now in America. Exports going away for this industry as well. And the people moving away from actual wood products with those composite woods. And they called it a perfect storm on what's happening out there in that specific industry as of now. Then you can get into the regulations on, deforesting and lumber taking down of trees in forests and things to that effect out there. So U.S. sawmills, right? A quiet issue here with them as they are slowly suffering in that field. And when we come back here at McCollum on Business, well, we'll get into a couple local stories here for you, right, and everything. If you're going to the Grand Canyon this weekend or next week and you had a reservation, you might have got an email here in the last 24 hours saying you don't have a reservation anymore. If you're staying on the South Rim, I'll tell you what's going on with that. And we'll talk about APS, specifically the Corporation Commission. They are literally looking out for APS and these customers. And that's why you're paying more money here for the electricity that these data centers are drawing in. And the Corporation Commission doesn't protect you out there. I'll tell you what I mean about this and why I feel that way. Come on back, folks. McCollum on Business. And we're back here. McCollum on business. You just saw the ad for The Real Matrix. The Angry Patriot invites you to come and watch that show with an open mind out there. As we have 10 episodes out now. Every Wednesday at noon. Some holiday weeks it'll take off like last week. But there are 10 episodes up here at Robot TV. They come out at noon on Wednesdays on demand for you there. He just asks that you come with an open mind and see what he has to say and on what is happening here in the real world and governments and those types of things out there. Check it out if that's your type of programming. This week's episode is live on Robot TV. You can find it on our production page here. It has nothing to do with the Robot TV on the YouTube page as well. It's on there. And then, of course, has a free podcast as well. Any of your number one favorite podcast systems, Spotify, Apple, Google, Podbean, it's up there as well. Just search The Real Matrix, and you'll find all 10 episodes there in podcast form. It is split up into part one and part two. It's just simply before the break and after the break for the show. He wanted that in 30-minute roughly increments. That way somebody can't listen to the whole thing. It's broken up in that format for you there. So that's what we're dealing with there. New episode is up here as of Wednesday. Check that out as well. And then, of course, the main event in the can for today. Uncle Lou comes in here on Thursday. We're back to our regular schedule. And Uncle Lou came in on Thursday here this week. Talked a lot of UFC with 2 fights coming up. Big fight card there in Vegas this weekend. 2 more fights, and then it moves over to Paramount. So this weekend is a pay-per-view. Last pay-per-view for UFC here on ESPN Plus before it moves to Paramount last year. We talked that. We talked NFL. Huge NFL game here on Thursday night tonight. Playoff implications galore. And 2 teams that are coming off of full weeks of rest here because they both played last Thursday. So I'm looking forward to this game tonight. We talk about that. Cardinals plans this weekend, of course, against the Rams as well and other NFL games. Tune into that on demand here at Robot TV right now. The YouTube page as well as free podcast system at the Pit Stop Talk is where you can find that, including, of course, on social medias. Follow us on X and Facebook and all that at the Pit Stop Talk there as well. I'm sorry, at the Pit Stop Talk. What am I saying? At TME Sports Show. Got ahead of myself there. TME Sports Show is where you can find the podcast. Search for that on your favorite system. And then, of course, on on YouTube as well and all of that stuff and social medias. Then you got the Pit Stop, right? The lawsuits going on. Follow me at the Pit Stop Talk. I'm kind of doing updates as I see them throughout regarding this lawsuit between the 2 teams and NASCAR. NASCAR's not coming out of this unscathed, even if they win it. And the sport will fundamentally change if the teams win this lawsuit. And I believe that sport of NASCAR is going to change in general. It's just a matter of how much, depending how this lawsuit comes out. At the Pit Stop Talk is where you can find me on social medias and follow that as that is happening right now. The show is on hiatus until January, February, technically, when the racing season starts back up. But I might do an emergency podcast as some big things happen here, maybe when the verdict comes out or a decision is made. So follow me at the Pit Stop Talk, and we'll get you set up on updated on racing news out there. And folks, with all that being said, let's get right back into the Market Watch. Of course, as soon as we're done here, we post this show on demand at Robot TV as well. It goes up on the YouTube page as well for our production company. And at least we got some decent news today, right? Dow Jones is down. It's only down 0.112% for you. It's 57 points down, getting a little bit better here today. But everything is basically even, as there's just no catalyst to change this market right now. S&P 500's up to 2 points. The NASDAQ's up to 5 points. The Russell 2K up to 27 points right now. Even Bitcoin's coming back down closer to even. 92,482 for Bitcoin here as the day goes on. Fed meeting is next week. That's kind of what everybody's going to be hanging out waiting for. We aren't getting any economic numbers from that government shutdown or post that. They're all been delayed till after the Fed meeting next week. So I don't know what the Fed movement's going to be here on the market here coming up. We'll have to pay attention to that. But stocks we're paying attention to right now, Hormel Foods, right? Parent company of Spam is their big product. 3.39% up here today as well. Well, this is amazing to me, right? They actually posted, you guys aren't eating enough Spam, folks. Disappointing revenue for their quarter that they just posted on as well. but they kind of alluded to a turnaround coming next year. That's what they're hoping on for them. Hormel said its full year earnings per share could reach $1.51. An analyst polled expected to have $1.45 per share number at that time. So they say good things are coming, which is probably why they're up 3.33%, despite that disappointing revenue for their latest quarter. Next company we're going to look at, cloud-based data storage company. Excuse me. It's called Snowflake. I have to sneeze. At least that time I was off camera. So yesterday we looked at another data company that was way down as well. Snowflake's down 11.08% today. This industry seems to be taking a hit right now. Well, they said their outlook for product revenue growth for January quarter, well, it's disappointing investors with what they announced. They did top third quarter results, in expectations, but their projection ahead, which is the same story yesterday with that company we looked at here during the market watch. This whole data storage, data management business, there's a lot of big down numbers here these last couple of days for them. Now let's look at PVH Corp out there. If you don't know what this parent company is, well, it's Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein brands are their big ones that they have underneath them. 10.74% down today. No retail right now going into this. We're in the holiday season. Obviously, that's not affecting markets unless they do a Dollar Tree did, right? Where we talked about earlier. That come out and raise their guidance here in this quarter and end of the year quarter with the holidays. Well, this brand here is down big, right? 10.78%. They issued disappointing fourth quarter guidance numbers. PVH expects earnings in a range of $3.20 to $3.35 per share, which is short of the $3.64 that was expected from the analyst. Revenue is seen increasing slightly to the low single digits, but the FactSet consensus estimate that was expected was 3.7%. PVH Corp missing big numbers here going into this quarter, and their expectation of this quarter is the bigger issue here. That's why they're down 10.78% right now as well. So you guys aren't buying enough Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein products, folks. Your fault, as they would probably blame you for not buying enough of them out there. And let's get into some local stories. Like I said, if you're going to the Grand Canyon South Rim, you are planning to stay overnight in a hotel or campsite inside the Grand Canyon grounds, well, you probably have a cancellation in your email out there as well, and everything, man. Why? No visitors. You're gonna not be able to stay overnight in the national parks. Oldest hotel or lodges starting this Saturday. Multiple breaks in the park's only water line. They're going to have to dig that up and replace it and get it fixed as well. It basically means no water is being pumped into the South Rim, and that means limited resources need to be conserved of what is in the park at that point. This is only the second time the park has had to halt overnight stays because of water supply issues. I would argue there should be 0 times. Like saying this is only the second time, and that number should be 0. Right? The pipeline has experienced frequent failures over the years, and it has long exceeded its expected lifespan. Yet they just need a whole new one up in that area. If you remember back in 2024, I believe it was July or August timeframe, park officials took the action then to and imposed water restrictions, and it forced the sudden shutdown of overnight hotel stays. And that time of year is the busiest time of year for the Grand Canyon. Wintertime, this time of year, not so much. So the August 2024 one hurt worse than this one will hurt here as well. So under the current restrictions, visitors can't stay at places. We're talking the El Tovar Hotel, Bright Angel Lodge, Massworth Lodge, etc. Anything inside as well. There's no water available at the campgrounds either inside the park. What does this mean for park staff and the residents of Grand Canyon Village? There's about 2,500 of them year round up there. Well, it means you have to take short showers, uh, you know, less toilet flushing, turning off faucets while shaving and brushing your teeth, and conserving the water for the people that live up there as well. They do expect to have the line fixed and back up and running sometime next week, but the closures start on Saturday here, which is just a couple days away. If you're planning on going up there as well. Now, if you're planning on going up there and not staying, now outside of the Grand Canyon, outside the park, lodging's fine and all of that stuff. We're talking inside the park specifically is the restriction side of it as well. So day visitors are still welcome to go up there if you're just planning on going up there or staying outside the park as well or lodging outside the park. You can still do that. Just if you have those appointments or camping inside the park, you're being restricted as of right now. So heads up on that as well. And as I said, winter is a slower season than summer. So this one's not going to hurt as much as that shutdown over the summer, right, in 2024. But there still are 41,000 people using overnight lodging inside the park just last December by itself. So it's still a big number of people that go up there and do it as well. The Grand Canyon still has over 5 million visitors that visited a year. There's about 5 million or so in 2024. 90% of them obviously go to the South Rim. It's easier to get to, than the North Rim. And of course, that North Rim fire doesn't help the tourist industry up there this summer either. So heads up on that if you're planning to go up there to northern Arizona and visit the Grand Canyon here over the next week or so. And now let's talk a little bit about APS specifically here because the Arizona regulators, they're scaling back the programs operated by APS there to encourage energy efficiency. The Corporation Commission argues that the trimming of they're trimming ineffective initiatives and eliminating unnecessary expenses for the company. This all went down yesterday, and it is an all Republican Arizona Corporation Commission right now. They voted unanimously to update APS's programs that encourage customers to adopt energy saving products and behaviors. They're not going to send you stuff anymore to remind you to get, LED light bulbs or, power on at certain times of the day, power off on certain times of the days. Yes. The commission actually rejected the utilities' request to expand these programs. And these are the demand side implementation plans, is what they call it, between in that side of it. So if you see that term, these are the things in that specific termed deal. And they call it DSIP, by the way. So instead, the Corporation Commission said, we don't care what you think, APS. Yeah, we're going to instead adopt a proposal that our chairman of the Corporation Commission, Kevin Thompson, put out there, and it slashes APS's DSM budget from the $91 million proposed by the utility to only $41 million at that time. The approved plan zeroes out the budget for programs that provide incentives to residential customers. Keep in mind, they're going after residential customers just like they are and making you pay for the data centers out there, folks. Right? So residential customers to make improvements to their homes. Like I said, energy efficient appliances. You can get some credits for that. And things. Light bulbs. You can get some credits for that. Well, no much longer because of the Arizona Corporation Commissions as well. They even say home builders will actually receive no benefits at all in that removal. It also removes the budget to provide customers with information. So you won't even know about any programs that are available because mailers are going away, online reports are going away as well. Those are all intended to help adopt energy conservative behaviors and let you be aware of what's out there. Gone. Yeah, the Corporation Commission's leader there, Mr. Thompson, he proposal retained a handful of APS's existing programs, ones that contribute to the so-called virtual power plants or the network of customer-owned devices that can help return power to the grid. It still does include cool rewards will still be available if you use that. That provides credits to customers who allow the utility to adjust their smart thermostat to reduce power consumption during times of high usage. Yeah, I would never let a utility control my deal. If I want to pay more, I'll pay more. I don't need you changing it. Hey, Kerry Carnes with APS told commissioners that last summer the program delivered 160 megawatts of power back to the grid. 1 megawatt of power, well, it's about 160 homes is what you can get there. So this new plan approved by the Corporation Commission, it also includes programs for schools and tribes, even guarantees full funding to help low-income residents make their homes more resistant to those extreme weather that we have here in the summer times. The plan also fully funds the Bring Your Own Device pilot program That pays participating customers who contribute power stored in their own batteries. Well, it puts it back into the grid when demand is highest and APS can pull at that point. Obviously, there's critics to this program. I'm one of them. Critics argued the program undercuts efforts to reduce energy consumption in Arizona. Utilities are continuing to invest in new power plants and pipelines to meet demand, and they're stopping you from being more efficient. They don't want you to be more energy efficient now, right? And things to that effect. The data centers are the big growth here. They're favoring the data centers and they're messing with you, the residential homeowners out there. And you're going to have to pay on the back of these large corporations, is what they're basically telling us right now. It's also said, while some modifications to this rule could be justified, but this plan will it cut too deep into programs that have real benefits. Not only that, several criticisms of this are, well, the proposal that is out there and was voted on unanimously, it was only introduced publicly one day before the meeting. So it wasn't vetted the way it needed to be vetted and stuff to that effect. He just was like, hey, you guys take this or not. I'm telling you, be careful who you vote into your corporation commission. They will mess with your utility bills and cause them to go up. And that's what you're seeing right now. And they'll lower them for the data centers and give them all the appeal side of it. I'm off of my soapbox on that side. But we can rely on places like the State Court of Appeals here, folks, to help us out against these utilities and they're raising rates at astronomical percentages and things like that as well. Yeah, the State Court of Appeals in Arizona last week here, the Thanksgiving week, they actually throw a hurdle into the efforts by the Arizona Corporation Commission to expedite rate hike requests by the utilities. That's how much the Arizona Corporation Commission cares about you, the residential consumer. Remember, they put this in where they say, oh, instead of going through this lengthy process to raise prices, we'll just do it arbitrarily whenever we want to. This was a unanimous decision by the Court of Appeals, and the judges said the Residential Utility Consumer Office should be given the chance to prove that the process to review rate increases, like I said, all Republican commission adopted last year. So they say it must go through that same formal rulemaking process outlined in state law. They're trying to bypass state law to give these corporations a monopoly, instant increases in your utility rates without going through this process, right? So what makes that important? Well, the three-judge panel refused to simply accept arguments from the commissioners that what they had done was simply a change in policy, something that they say they were free to do without the same extensive hearings and public rules required here for any of those new rules out there. The ruling means that pending rate hikes cannot use the commission-adopted truncated process until there's a final decision on whether it acted illegally in doing this process. So that's a big win for the Residential Utility Consumer Office. It's a big win for us consumers because you mean to tell me they're going to put through, remember, APS asked for an astronomical rate hike percentage. The only way to fight that is to go through this process and it gets knocked down to a lower number. They want to get rid of that process and just allow them to have the double-digit price increases for you as consumers while they continue to give price cuts to the data centers and people driving the increase in electricity uses is out there and things. Well, the evidence shows that the process adopted by the commission and pushed by utilities, by the way, anytime a utility is pushing for easier price increases, your antenna should go up. Well, they say that it could result in higher rates for customers, all without the opportunities they now have to object on those higher rates and get them knocked down. This new ruling gives the consumer side of things their attorneys there to a chance to keep the new process from being implemented. This obviously isn't going to be the last word or anything to that effect. APS and the Corporation Commission are going to study this ruling, and they're going to find ways to continue to screw you over as a homeowner. Yeah, that's what they're going to do as well. So it's not over. There's going to be a fight moving forward, and it could eventually get to the Arizona Supreme Court for a decision at it at this time. So, the issue here is that investor-owned utilities like APS have monopolies. That's why they have to go through the lengthy raise cost prices. They have to justify it, they have to show it, and they have to get approval on it. That's the trade-off for the monopoly. And APS, the Arizona Corporation Commission and APS, they want to bypass that process and do whatever they want as a monopoly. And your electric bill is going to go sky high because they're going to want the data centers to come in so they can make more money, and they're going to charge you the added prices over the data center side of it as well. So let's root for that rule. In my opinion, is I know you might have different ones, but let's root for that appeals court and that process to go through so they can continue. The other side of it is open up electricity so it's no longer a monopoly anymore, and they have to battle it out for customers and everything. APS will lose some customers in that instance. They charge way more than SRP does. That's why they don't want that to happen out there as well. So, yeah, Corporation Commission, all Republican, and if you're a Republican and for higher rates, yeah, get what we vote for, I guess, right? Pay attention to those things. Those are more important than voting for president and those types of things, right? Because it affects us here locally. And if open up your electric bill right now, and it's higher than it was last December. Even if you use I use the exact same electricity as I did last December, and my bill's more expensive because of price increases. We'll be back tomorrow, folks, here at McCollum on Business. Come and join us, would you? Live at 11. Excuse me. Live at 11 o'clock, on demand afterwards. Get the hiccups here sometimes during this show. Come and join me, would you? We'll see you then. Have a great Thursday night, everybody.